Hello, this is my mini lecture on Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. So, Waiting for Godot was written in 1948 and was written in French originally. Samuel Beckett is an Irish writer, but he spent most of his life as an adult over in France. In fact, he was in France during World War II and fought in the resistance there. And he wrote this play just several years after the end of the war. As far as the war ended in 1945, he wrote this in 48. And it received mixed reviews when it first came out, and it first premiered at the Left Bank Theater in Paris, and then in the in 1950s he translated it into English, and then it was shown in London and has gradually gotten bigger and bigger until the point where a lot of the numerous critics agree it's one of the most important plays written in English in the 20th century. It's also been described as a play about nothing. And so there's all sorts of schools of thought on this type of play. The main thing to keep in mind is it's a play that's deliberately sparse. It's deliberately bare. Beckett's considered a quintessential figure in the theater of the absurd, and part of his technique is that he uses very minimal amount of actors, very minimal stage props, and from there he invites the audience to metaphorically come into the play and complete that sort of sparse scene with our own imagination and our own thoughts. It's part of his strategy that he used in many of his plays. He was also he wrote all sorts of things. He wrote novels, poems, short stories, and he did win the Pulitzer Prize in late 1960s. And lived well into his 80s. Had a very long, successful literary career. Waiting for Godot is certainly considered one of his masterpieces. So for our purposes, we'll be viewing this play on YouTube. I've provided a link in the module as well as in our assignment number 3. And if you wanted to go and find a little bit more information, if you're curious about Beckett, or if you're curious about Waiting for Godot and how it's been received by other literary critics, you can find a host of information on this. It might be fun to take a look at that. I'm sort of deliberately giving you just a quick bit of information, a little bit of historical context, in that I'm hoping that that you'll view this exercise more as a writer, in that if you really were fascinated by this play or by Beckett, people write dissertations on this play and on Beckett's writing. So there's plenty to be done. But that's probably not necessarily useful for what we're going to be doing. I think the main thing is to watch the play, maybe get a little bit of some other literary critics' take, if that's of use to you. You can also find on that YouTube link as well. Steve Martin and Robin Williams were the two main characters, Dee Dee and Gogo, in a version of Waiting for Godot. So that might be fun to look those guys up if you do a little keyword search on that and see how it's been reenacted by others. So that might be fun if that's useful to you, but I wouldn't spend a gob of time there. In terms of what I'm mainly looking for is we'll all view this YouTube link as a class together, and then you'll come up with your own writing response and see how things go from there. The exercise I'm hoping that we end up doing is an exercise in voice. That is to say, we're moving from writing fiction to creative nonfiction. You'll take all your writing skills we've been working on before, and you'll add this idea of voice, what it means to introduce yourself in the first person to the conversation. So a response to Waiting for Godot might have quite a bit of what you're up to and your own personal response and interaction with the play. If you wanted to, you could do something that's more like a summary and more like something like that. I don't think that would be as useful. It could be. I'm not going to rule it out 100%, but I think that spending a bit of time with the summary portion, maybe a little bit of the 500 words, you might have a few sentences or paragraph devoted to that, but really it's going to be your response to the play that becomes, I think, pretty interesting. There's all sorts of things been said about this play. It's been out for 70 years, and so there's a whole host of conversation there. Really, the play itself invites you as the audience member to complete this type of conversation and to complete the scene with your own experience. So I think it's just an excellent play for us to work on as writers and thinking about the way that that we introduce ourselves, the I, the first person, into our writing. So let me see. Some other things I might add there as well would be, as far as an example of how you might view this play and make yourself into a character. If I were to do this or think about this, I was watching the play again, I guess a couple nights ago, and so one of the things I add that since we're not all, as a class going to a play as we might if we didn't have the pandemic going on, since we're not all traveling there as a group to go view this play, we're doing this all virtually and separately. I decided I'd kind of set up my own little space to watch it, and there were some practical components for us. I got dogs and a couple of younger kids, and so I need to make sure everyone's asleep, the dogs are snoring, the kids are in bed, that type of thing. The chores, the house is clean, that kind of stuff is done, and then I can set up this play. I might include something about that. We've been thinking about the review. So, for example, if I were to do this assignment 3, I might have, and this would be sort of kind of just riffing or what a draft might look like, or what I might write in that first draft in my journal would be. I've seen Beckett's play Waiting for Godot performed dozens of times, and oftentimes getting ready for this class, right? But I've seen it performed dozens of times outside of literary requirements, getting ready for classes. But this is the first time I've done so during a pandemic, and then I might include a little information about getting everyone to bed and getting things in order and creating my own environment in which to engage in a dialogue with the play. Maybe I'd have something about that. Maybe I might go through and cut it's long-winded, didn't quite get to the point, but I'd at least note the circumstances. So if you're watching even on your phone, if you're out in a park or something like that, maybe the only prop in there is that there's a tree, right? So maybe you go find a tree, and if you have a signal, you can watch it under there. I don't know, but that may or may not be part of it. Also, which characters you're not going to be able to, there's only four plus the appearance of the boy at the end for 5, and so you're not going to go on to describe a whole lot of things, but there might be one in particular that you relate to. So I might have notes also along the lines of in some of my earlier viewings of Waiting for Godot, the character of Lucky has always struck me as he's the servant of Pazzo, and who receives a lot of this abuse, and then he also has the most, I think, interesting soliloquies or moments where he's just speaking on his own. In the past, I've often thought about Lucky, and you just want to kind of step in there and help out the guy as the audience member. This time, the thing that really caught my attention is the relationship between the two main characters that are waiting for Godot, and especially towards the end. And there's something about the way that the two of them are trying to hang on to their friendship, to their love for each other, and the circumstances are dire and this type of thing. So maybe that would be the thing that I would focus on and have an appeal to. And that would be different in the past. That wouldn't be the part of the play that strikes me as much. So it's an hour and a half play. It's probably not useful to try to summarize and get after the whole thing, but rather to get after a couple of just scenes, and then think about how it might relate to your own life, and how you as the audience member want to complete this play. I don't know if that's useful or not. I hope so. I think the main thing is have fun with this. Don't get too tied up and stressed out about it. Really, you're going to be imagining yourself as the audience member, and then writing what comes to mind. It might look, as far as range-wise, more like a review. It could be lean towards a formal review. I wouldn't do that too much, but it might lean in that direction, or it might be just an entirely, almost like a diary-like response to the play. Although you'd want to clean that up and polish that up a little bit, somewhere in that range. Okay, so hopefully that's of use. We're going to be viewing Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, one of the most important plays written in English in the 20th century. Also a play about nothing. So good luck. Have fun.